Hey everyone, I'm Melissa of Kalen, the founder of the Michigan Aurora Chasers and author of the book Beyond the 45th Parallel, the beginner's guide to chasing aurora in the mid-latitudes. And I want to explain a simple tool today, this map we use in the Michigan Aurora Chasers. It revolves around the K index or KP, but as we talk about this, it might be useful to help you understand this index anywhere in the world. So first, let's talk about K and KP a little bit. The K index is actually an index that measures geomagnetic activity on a scale of 0 to 9, 0 being the weakest, nothing is happening anywhere in the world, 9 being the strongest. That will push the northern lights south or the southern lights north. Closer to the equator. So 9 is the strongest, 0 is the weakest, and this is geomagnetic activity, actually. A lot of apps and websites in Aurora Forecast will say that this is a measure of aurora strength, as we do here in our simplification of the explanation. But geomagnetic activity is its own force. It's strongly correlated to aurora, but it doesn't always mean aurora. It's really when we get to those geomagnetic storm levels, the G storm levels, that are on the K index that we start to see really visible, beautiful aurora at lower latitudes. So you'll see the KP in these forecasts, like the 3-day forecast from NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. Here we have 3 days lined up with 3-hour increments in universal time, and is going to give you the planetary average of the K index for that 3 hours of time as they predict it to happen. So keep in mind when you're reading KP, that is also a 3-hour average of the K index around the planet, and these are just forecast. The lower numbers don't mean much for really strong aurora. The higher numbers start to get into an equivalent to G storm levels, like a G1 storm, G2 storm, or G3 storm. And that's when it gets really exciting. So how do you read the map? Well, let's start with North America. This map is from NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, and you can find maps like these from other sources as well. You can see that the KP corresponds to a latitude where aurora could be present. So at KP3 or K3, again, when it's KP, it's a 3-hour average. When it's K, it's an actual value. That's pretty good in North America. For Canada, you can see aurora overhead. KP4 is going to be right in the middle there. And then KP5 pushes aurora overhead for us in Michigan and across the Great Lakes region and can be seen low on the horizon down to the 45th parallel. So as you can see, this sort of spells out the KP values by latitude, and aurora strength and geomagnetic activity actually follows geomagnetic latitudes rather than geographic latitudes. So that can be confusing for some people. But you can look at these maps and determine how strong do I need the KP to be near me in order to see the aurora. All right, so we're going to keep going here. In the Michigan Aurora Chasers, we first developed a map of the K index that laid out the geographic latitudes. And, this is a generalization because aurora is regional. It's actually going to be different in different regions. It'll be very different at different times. And you can even have 5 or 10 minute spikes where you can see aurora farther south than you could 5 or 10 minutes before. But in general, we were saying, okay, at the 47th parallel, 47 degrees north, you can see K4. That's all you need to see aurora in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. At 46 degrees north, you only need K4 to see aurora well, visible aurora in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Then we need K5. As we go farther south, we need higher numbers in order to be able to see the aurora in the region. So the 45th parallel is really common for K5, which sends the aurora overhead. Generally speaking, it's regional and it varies. And then K5 or 6 around the tip of the thumb, as we call it in Michigan, or the middle of the mitten, as we call it. You need K5 or K6, depending on other variables and depending on other strength. And then with K6, we here in Michigan can see aurora anywhere in the state because it's going to stretch southward and still be visible in all of the points north. So this is the first map we developed. Then we thought, okay, let's color code it to match what you're seeing from some of our sources for geomagnetic forecasting, space weather forecasting. So we created another edition of the map that really lines up the K values and KP with a color system that tells you, okay, when KP is stronger, when that geomagnetic activity is stronger, or when the K index is stronger, it's going to push farther south. So how do you read this map? Again, you can think of this as aurora strength measured on a scale of 0 to 9, 0 being the weakest, 9 being the highest and the strongest. Okay. So if you're in the North Pole, for example, looking for the Northern Lights, all you really need is a K1, KP1 to see aurora. You don't need much, maybe a KP2. Okay. But once you get down into the lower 48 states of the US, the Great Lakes region, or Michigan more specifically, we need at least a K4 in this area with the blue and green. This is giving you kind of normal aurora levels. K4, which is below storm levels, that's all we need to see aurora, visible aurora, basically overhead in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. As we go farther south, we need stronger levels. So KP5 is going to come overhead at the 45th parallel. It's going to be visible low on the northern horizon. Farther south from that, you can still look north and see this on the low on the northern horizon. KP5 also is equivalent to a G1 storm. So that's the first level of geomagnetic storming, a minor geomagnetic storm. And it's these storm levels we're really looking for. So we want to get everyone focused on that. But as you get into KP5, the Northern Lights pushes farther south, coming overhead in the middle of the state. Now, if you want to see aurora all the way in southern Michigan, the Northern Lights this far south, you're going to need even stronger numbers, a KP6. That's equivalent to a G2 storm or a moderate geomagnetic storm. It's the same thing. And that could send aurora overhead at 43 degrees north. With a G1 storm, it's going to be overhead at 45 degrees north. But for 43 degrees north, or to see it low on the horizon at 42 degrees north, we need a KP6. Now, does that mean it's going to be strongest in the south of the state? No, that just means aurora, the Northern Lights, is strong enough to push this far south, meaning everything north of this is still going to see aurora, probably even better aurora. It could be aurora overhead. It could be aurora if you're all the way up here in Mackinac City or the tip of the mitten. During a K6, KP6, G2 storm, all the same thing, during a KP6, you in Mackinac City could be seeing aurora to your south. Okay. So once the numbers get really strong, KP6, we can see aurora across the entire state of Michigan. And the farther north you are, the greater your view is going to be, because you could be seeing it overhead all around you to the east, to the west, and to your south. That is how you read this map. It does not mean that aurora will be strongest in southern Michigan. This is a standing map that is always the same, and these colors correspond to some of the colors that you can see on the KP maps. And really, if you were to compare that map with this map, which I don't love, it's a little bit easier to read, but the accuracy seems to vary a little bit. You can see, okay, here's where we're talking about overhead aurora at different levels. Again, in northern Canada, KP3 or less is going to give you aurora over your head in the top center of the sky. KP3 to 4 is going to be really great along the Canada-US border. Again, you can see the layout, KP5 to 6, even farther south, KP7 to 8, even farther south. And KP9 is when we max out the scale and aurora can be seen much, much closer to the equator. Um, so that's kind of how it lays out. But our Michigan map was created not just based on that map, also using experience and also really talking about what will be eyesight visible. If you're using a phone camera or a standard DSLR camera, any camera really, you can catch aurora much sooner at much lower levels than the KP values you see here. It's really going to vary a lot. It's also going to vary by time and by region. So this is a huge generalization. That's how it lays out for North America. We can extend our discussion of KP and the K values and the G storm values to Europe and Asia and kind of see how the latitudes lay out there. And so you can find this map online too. This will tell you what different KP values you need to see aurora where you are in the Eastern Hemisphere. And then you can see these maps together too. So this full map kind of showing the KP values as they line up across the world is actually really cool, not only because it can tell you what to look for, but also you'll notice in the Great Lakes region, the auroral oval, when it gets stronger, dips farther south. So we actually are in a really prime location for viewing some of this really strong aurora in the Great Lakes region of the United States. So that is our discussion of the KP map and how to read it. And again, just remember, the stronger those values are, the farther south the northern lights are going to push. And anywhere along these lines, anywhere along these latitudes, anywhere north of this is still going to have a really fantastic shot as long as you can find clear skies with dark skies. And that will give you good chances of seeing visible aurora. Cameras increase the odds, substorms increase the odds. There's all kinds of things that will make aurora visible beyond these values. And again, really what we're looking for is those geomagnetic storm levels. At G storm levels, the aurora become much more strongable, much more incredible to watch with the eye. So that explains this map. I hope it helps. And as always, good luck on the aurora chasing trail.